to our next session entitled Meeting the Digital India Challenge. We have our speaker, Samiran Gupta. He is the head of India ICANN and a veteran in business strategy and public affairs management. Prior to joining ICANN, Samiran was a senior director with APCO Worldwide, responsible for counseling clients in business and public affairs strategy. Samiran has worked extensively in sectors including telecom, entertainment, payment systems, e-commerce, social media, and energy and renewables. Samiran brings a plethora of experience and knowledge that he's here to share with all of you. So please put your hands together to welcome Samiran Gupta.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. I can see a slightly reduced number of audience, but thank you for staying back and staying here and sort of joining me over here. So I have a couple of confessions to make. The first one is I'm really thrilled to be on the stage because I've usually been sitting on the other side and listening to great music performances. So I took a walk around just to get a sense of what happens backstage. The second sort of thing I wanted to share with you is I'm actually not from this industry. And I've spent the morning here and the afternoon, most part of the afternoon, sort of listening to some great speakers talking about a lot of interesting and very important stuff. Now, what I have for you is really the challenge that we are in the process of facing with Digital India, and what is it that I believe we need to do as a community, as an industry as a whole, to sort of work with that challenge. So without further ado, let me get started. So where are we today? And essentially, there are three or four sort of broad themes which play out the internet industry in this country at this time. And by the way, some of the data points that I'm going to be sharing have already been shared by some of the previous speakers. But through the presentation, I have a couple of messages which I believe are important. So we'll get there. So India's internet ecosystem is a study in contrast. On the one hand, as we heard this afternoon, and rightly so, we are going to see the 300 million number in Indian subscribers crossing the 300 million number some point this month. So when you hit 2015, India will be possibly the second largest internet market after China. Yet, all of this has happened with a great degree of infrastructural constraints that the industry has had. And I'm not going to dwell on what they have been and all of that. We also had regulatory hiccups and concerns. When I say regulatory hiccups and concerns, I mean that there have been issues around licensing of bandwidth, and even when it comes to social media, there have been issues around freedom of speech and how that is applicable, and we heard a little bit about that earlier today as well. And as a result of all of this, what we have is a very low contribution to GDP from this sector. Typically, research has shown that in an emerging economy, the internet contributes as much as 3.4% of the GDP. In a mature economy, it contributes about 1.8 to 1.9%, but in India, we are somewhere in the 1.6% mark. So there are two ways of looking at any number, and one, the positive way of looking at it is obviously there's a lot of room for growth, and I think the challenge therefore in front of us is to make sure that we tackle this the future in a manner that, there is in fact growth, there is more ubiquity of internet in the lives of not only us in the cities, but also across this country. So some in market trends and data points, some of this you possibly already know. And my sources are on the left-hand side. A.T. Kearney recently did a survey which found that up to 51% of those surveyed like to stay online 24/7. We've already talked about the growth of the market, so I'm not going to spend more time talking about it. But another interesting data point is 73% of rural India accesses internet only for entertainment. Now, there are two ways of looking at that. To me, it seems that there isn't anything else for them to look at because not enough content is available for them to consume. So the only thing they're consuming is entertainment. And the other way of looking at it is obviously, they're consuming entertainment, let's give them some more. A Gartner study says that e-retail is poised to grow by 70% in 2015. Now, when I say e-retail, it is pure e-commerce. I'm not talking about, services such as ticketing, etc., which make up the e-commerce in totality. The total size of that e-commerce market is about $13 billion US, but about 75-80% of it traditionally has been the ticketing bit. It seems now pure e-tail or retail on the internet will start growing. How many of you know what a root server is? If I can see a show of hands. Okay. So, very recently, and as you possibly know, there are 13 root servers in the world, and the way the internet runs is by replicating those root servers across geography so that if one is down, another one picks it up. In India, there are already 3 such root servers. Now, ICANN's root server is the L root server, and very recently, the Internet Society, Kolkata chapter, came in contact with us and we helped them put up the L root server. And within minutes and literally hours, they were getting queries of up to 700 queries per second. So, which meant that queries for online access or searching of information just came blazing into that site. So these are all very clear indications of how the market seems to be growing all the time. And lastly, I don't know if you can see those numbers on the screen, but this is from the DNA research, that's Domains Name Association. And I'm just looking at figures for India, and those are the numbers for generic TLDs, industry TLDs, and brand TLDs. So there's some movement which is starting to happen with GTLDs as well. And in the middle of all of this, we know that the government has put together the Digital India Challenge. We saw this graphic earlier today when our first first speaker spoke about Digital India in some bit, and I'm just going to touch upon it from a different perspective. I've color-coded these to indicate in my mind how these sort of 9 pillars work with each other. So So the blue pillars, which are, number 1, 2, and 3, broadband highways, universal access to phones, and public internet access programs. These are essentially infrastructure pillars. This is to build stability, this is to build capacity, this is to build, ubiquity. The green pillars in the middle are actually the services which will run on the blue pillars. Okay? So these are all e-governance services by and large. But think of it from a different perspective. If you can get somebody in a remote village, maybe 200 kilometers from Mumbai, collecting their social, one of their government planned payment schemes online, you already, somebody has done the market development for you to get that person online. One of the challenges in rural India is to actually get people to understand what the internet can deliver. So this is what the green pillars are. And the purple pillars are more economic drivers. Some of it could be socio-economic, but they're broadly economic drivers, wherein essentially these are much larger goals which can be achieved if you have the number 1, 2, and 3 in the beginning, because you need to have create infrastructure. So this morning, for example, we heard about how Madhya Pradesh is looking at themselves to be the data center capital of India in a sense. So that would again go into the blue section. So given all of this, what is it that the industry needs to do to respond? And this is the question that I have for us to discuss today. And essentially, I believe the first message over here is a need to reimagine the internet. And when I say reimagine the internet, we've heard a fair bit about reimagining the internet earlier today from various speakers. But I think the real issue over here is to try and figure out how is it you're going to sell the internet to those who are not working in English. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. And this is not a challenge that this community over here can, undertake on your own. There are various stakeholders. But just let's look at this. So the basic message over here is, when we reimagine the internet, we have to look at it from all of these and possibly some other issues. More bandwidth, compelling content and design, more storage space, domain names that are memorable, domain names in non-English scripts, technology that integrates new GTLDs with online services. Because today, for example, if you get a .bharat ID, you cannot have a .bharat email address yet. And it's not the government of India's fault or anything. I mean, it's just that the technology is still working around, getting that going. Technology which bridges the skills/education challenges of users. Now, a few months ago, when Mark Zuckerberg was in India and sort of presented internet.org to us, one of the technologies that was showcased in his presentation was to try and get those who are not literate to use the internet for services. Okay? Now, these are some real challenges which need to be met. Okay. Finally, there is the issue of skills capacity building, which means that as the marketplace grows, you're going to need more and more people who are skilled to do certain functions, whether it's data security, whether it's programming, whether it's content design, and all of this for a very price-sensitive market that India is. We need all of this to be done at a reasonable cost. So, to me, this is the challenge. It's all very nice to see it on one slide, and there's a lot more to it. But I think the challenge is to be able to come to terms with how technology is moving, and therefore to understand how the game needs to be played. And my humble submission over here is that it's possibly time to look at reinventing the approach to the internet. So the second message that I have is the industry as a whole will need to coordinate better, and in ICANN parlance, we call it a multi-stakeholder model. Now, when I say the industry as a whole, what I have over here are all the various members. I'm sorry the slides have got a little scrunched, but the first box is the government. Today the government, for example, is really concerned about security, okay? And cyber threats and such like. But if you look at, if you look at the civil society, and I can neither read that nor the one below, so I'm just wandering over there. If you look at civil society, they're concerned about freedom of expression. Now when you're looking at security and you juxtapose that with freedom of expression, and there's a Supreme Court hearing which is happening as we speak. It started yesterday on the issue of Section 66A of the IT Act, and essentially no lawmaking has been possible because of the contentious problems which the civil society has raised, and rightly so, with the government. And of course, the third part of the ecosystem are the registrars, the resellers. Many of you are in the room, who are actually in the front line of this business, who are reaching out to the marketplace and dealing with customers. The next would be the academics and think tanks. Now, academics and think tanks are looking at the internet purely from policy making perspective. What is, there are 3 or 4 or maybe 2 or 3 global discourses right now on internet policy. One is possibly the multi-stakeholder model that ICANN is very supportive of. The second is a model which, let us say, the United Nations has. Okay, and of course, countries such as China and Russia are very clear that they don't want to have anything to do with, globally enabling policies for internet governance. So, what should India's policy be? Do we have a policy on how we want to engage with the globe? This is still under discussion. Okay, but this is where think tanks and academics come in. We then have of course have the other private sector players. When I say private sector players, I include your data center, and I include ISPs, and I include telcos. And of course, thereafter you have the media. Okay, the media is a strong carrier of everybody's messaging and an influencer of many of the decisions that take place. So, my submission is, if we were to really make use of the technologies which are emerging around the internet, we need to work as a global or as a community where all members and all sort of participants of this ecosystem come together and talk to each other. Now, in what form and which shape, it's to be to be found out. And I'll give you an example. I've actually been in Mumbai since yesterday, and I was attending the Data Security Council of India's annual security summit yesterday. Now, all they were talking about is internet security. Okay, and today I'm over here. Now, eventually, some of these conferences, some of these meetings need to have more members of the ecosystem present so that the problems and the issues are discussed simultaneously. So, what excites us about the internet the most at ICANN, it's to make the experience most ubiquitous. And I have a small video here. I'll request the video to be played. Thank you.
The dot is making new friends, more than 1,300 of them, and they're going to change the internet like never before.
The old friends, like O, NET, and COM, as well as the many 200 friends from around the world, will continue to sit by the side of the dot.
But these new friends promise to show us new things, take us to new places, and open new paths to innovation.
Some are brands, names you already know, who are designing new ways to better serve your online needs.
Some are generics, everyday words that just might attract your personal or professional online interests.
Still others are cities and towns, offering an online home for you or your business.
And for the first time, dot names in many more languages and characters, giving voice to 1 billion more internet users.
Yes, thanks to the dot's many new friends, the internet is changing.
Thank you. So, the new GTLDs is a reflection of a few things. It's a reflection of where the future of the internet lies. And it's very clear it's not necessarily in English-speaking audiences, the growth. It's also very clear that the internet or your website or your domain presence is a fairly powerful branding tool, which people are discovering and want to own it almost like a real estate. So this is the real estate of the future in a sense. Okay, and therefore, what is a challenge in India? In my view, and I know the subsequent speaker is going to talk about the MSME sector, so I'm not going to talk much about it. But the fact is, what you have is this, that you have one of the largest sort of business community in the country, which contribute about 8% of the GDP and 45% of manufacturing output and 40% of the nation's exports. Okay, much of it is not in the big cities. Much of it is not very computer savvy. That's a challenge where, eventually getting them online, getting them their own identity, getting them, sort of being more global in their business approach. This is where some of these technologies can come to use. So the challenges are very, the value proposition is well known: better branding, better searchability, proliferation of local language content. The challenges are equally well known: to sell new concepts to the diverse markets, consumer education in multiple languages, and better coordination with the ecosystem. And as I said earlier, these challenges have to be met as a team, as an ecosystem, and not by individual sort of industry segments. So with that, I come to the end of my first part of the my presentation, I'm going to talk very briefly about ICANN. Some of you will possibly know what ICANN does, but here we go. So, ICANN is essentially ICANN maintains and administers the unique identifiers which connect one domain ID to another. So in other words, when you have domain names and you have IP addresses, how does one IP address find another IP address? That system is coordinated by ICANN. ICANN was set up in 1998 as a non-profit in the United States. It's only last year that we've sort of taken a more global view, and thanks to that I'm standing in front of you. We set up a couple of hubs, one in Istanbul, which looks at Europe and Middle East, and one in Singapore, which looks after the Asia-Pacific region. Where do we sit in if we were to look at the internet sort of ecosystem? We are somewhere in the middle. We call it the logical or technical layer. There's the infrastructure right at the bottom. That's your broadband lines. That's your telcos. We are a coordination group in the middle. We work alongside. We're a technology platform, and we work alongside the IETF and other institutions such as APNIC. And then, of course, sitting on this logical layer is the content layer, where people are creating content and sort of making things happen over there. This is a real busy slide. My apologies, doesn't read too well. But the way ICANN is managed is it is like a mini United Nations in a sense. We want to make sure that there's geographic diversity, and therefore there are various committees which feed into the board of directors with recommendations. Meetings are held 3 times a year, fairly often. The next meeting is, and these meetings are free, by the way, to anybody who wants to attend. The next meeting is in Singapore in February. If any of you are interested, do go to the ICANN website, and you can find a way to register.
Do they provide travel?
Actually, you'll be surprised. If you get a fellowship from us, yes, your travel and stay will be provided. We do give some fellowships. But we can talk about that offline as well. So the local APAC hub is essentially to support the region with technology, with legal issues. What have we done in India recently? We've launched .Bharat. We've participated at various events. We've recently installed the L route, and we work with CDAC, the government organization, in creating Neo-Brahmi scripts so that eventually we are going to have at least 7 or 8 more languages, Indian languages, which will be searchable, and you can create web presences. So that's broadly it. If you want to participate, these are the ways. You can join the community by coming on the social media platform. If you want to receive more information, please get in touch with me. My details will be available shortly. I'll be happy to put you on a mailing list so you're kept informed. If you're interested in coming to the meetings, as I said, come to the website. And of course, you'll be pleasantly surprised. There are several people in India who've actually been to ICANN meetings and were part of the larger ICANN family. There are ways to reach out to them as well. So with that, I'll end over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Samiran, for arming us with the tools to confront digital India. We have time for one question. I always have the most difficult job of that, cutting the Q&A session down. So we have one question right here, please.
Sir, as you said that anyone can be fellow member for this ICANN, is there basic requirement, qualification requirement for becoming that, or some sort of industry people can only be associated with that?
You mean the fellowship program?
Yeah.
The fellowship program is meant for those who have who either plan to be in the industry or are already in the industry in various capacities. We've had fellows who've been graduate students. We've had fellows who've just started work somewhere. So we are looking at those who can come back after they go for on a fellowship, come back and actually participate in the community. The multi-stakeholder model is all about bottom-up participation. So we want as many people, who can be out there and talk about, ICANN.
I would like to extend my question. What would be the role of these fellow members?
When they come back?
No, what will be the role of these?
You see, if you go to our website and see the meetings that's going to be held in Singapore in February, you can choose, and there are 6 or 7 themes, there are roughly 2,000 to 3,000 people who show up. Now you can choose to be part of any of those themes. You can help in creating new regulation, that eventually will go to the ICANN board. So you actually participate in whether on a technical side or in the regulatory side.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and please join me in thanking Samiran for that very informative